Both Madison and Oneida counties saw large increases in their confirmed cases over the weekend, many of which are coming from this farm in the city of Oneida that the Oneida County executive says was shocking.
But over the last few days in the mass testing that has been done there, 122 positive cases have come as a result of that testing.
It is the largest outbreak Central New York has seen since the coronavirus pandemic reached our region. Good evening, everyone. I'm Megan Coleman. 139 workers at Green Empire Farms in Madison County have tested positive for COVID-19. Tonight, Madison County leaders denying they got sick at work, suggesting it's community spread. The new hotspot sits in the city of Oneida, near the Oneida-Madison County border. 70 of the cases are being monitored by Madison County, while the other 69 are being monitored by Oneida County health officials. Those infected are seasonal employees hired through a contracting firm in Indiana. Tonight, Madison County leaders are attributing progressive testing for revealing the new cases.
We don't have tests to test everybody. We can only do what we can do. We know we've got a couple of hot spots. We're working on it. We're all human.
Tonight, county leaders say the farm followed state guidelines in giving its workers personal protective equipment like masks and face coverings. It's important to note Green Empire Farms is a large contributor to the region's economy. It opened back up in July of 2019, touting itself as the future of farming. We have team coverage ahead for you tonight. Our Amanda Chin is in Oneida County. A war of words between leaders in Madison and Oneida counties. Did Green Empire Farms do enough to protect its workers? Plus, our Sam Carter breaks down what happens next. How will the county monitor those infected?
Well, Matt and Megan, tonight I spoke with a woman with family members who work here at Green Empire Farms, and she says that the community and the workers are concerned with how many COVID cases they have here. There are about 300 employees who work at Green Empire Farms in Madison County. 139 of those employees have tested positive for COVID-19. Kathy Risley from Canastota has two family members who work at the greenhouse.
I know my family member took today off after it became known there was so many more cases.
Her other family member stopped working there in March when Kathy says the first COVID cases began.
They've had COVID cases for the last 2 months that they haven't really made the public aware of. And they weren't really taking precautions to keep people separated or to prevent this from spreading throughout the facility.
Madison County said they can't confirm if the first COVID cases began in March, but the county says they have been in contact with the greenhouse since March to help them implement protocols such as social distancing, cleaning of break rooms more often, and taking employee temperatures before every shift.
We've actually had our staff do walkthroughs and inspections. I mean, they're at quite a distance. Have you seen this facility? It's huge. Yeah, it's quite large. So distancing is very easy to do in there.
Many of the employees are staying at hotels while the county does contact tracing and continues to do testing. One of the hotels is the La Quinta Inn in Oneida County. The other two are the Super 8 and Days Inn in Madison County. The county says they are providing food to the employees and are working on also providing a cleaning and laundry service and telling people to stay inside once they've been tested. Kathy lives close to one of the hotels and says the number of cases is concerning.
I'm hoping they'll close or at least do something to keep this spread from continuing in our community.
And Kathy also told me that tomorrow morning around 11, some of the members of the community and some of the greenhouse employees plan to do a drive-by protest here to show their concern. Reporting live in Oneida, I'm Olivia Dance.
300 people work here at Green Empire Farms, and nearly half of them have the coronavirus. And today, people who live in Oneida and those who have family members who work at the farm are demanding answers about how so many employees got sick.
These people deserve better working conditions.
A protest Wednesday morning outside Green Empire Farms, now a hotbed for coronavirus.
We're doing a drive-by protest against the farm to stop the spread of this virus in our community.
Our Amanda Chin is working for you, tracking down the two major companies who play a role in the safety of farm workers. What do they have to say about the conditions those workers are living in? Plus, our Mary Keeler takes a look at how the virus spread so quickly. We begin with Amanda Chin live in Oneida tonight. Amanda.
Two very powerful companies who have a big say when it comes to these workers' living and working conditions. But the big issue at hand, how are there still 4 people to a hotel room even during this pandemic? We've learned today they've been here for months, living at hotels in Madison and Oneida counties before and after the pandemic began. A staffing company based in Indiana, Mac Contracting, hires the workers. Mastronardi Produce is the parent company of Green Empire Farms. Neither has responded to our question regarding why the workers lived 4 to a room. The executive director of the Workers Center of Central New York has not been in direct contact with the greenhouse, but has concerns over hotel housing.
There's often, dormitory style housing is common, or hotels. There's often group transportation. So there's a lot of contact and a lot of things that would be, of concern right now in the era of social distancing.
And again, Mac and Mastronardi did not get back to our request for comment. However, we did reach out to the New York and Indiana Attorney General's office. Now, New York cannot confirm or deny any active investigations, and Indiana tells us they do not have any cases on file for Mac. However, we do know that OSHA is aware of the outbreak and is currently investigating. Reporting live in Oneida, I'm Amanda Chin.
Multiple agencies looking into this now, Amanda. Thank you. Now, for this entire week, NBC3 has been pushing for answers, trying to learn more about the massive spread of COVID-19 at Green Empire Farms. Our Mary Keeler joins us live from Madison County tonight with more on what she's learned. Mary.
Madison County leaders held a short but very telling press briefing earlier today in the building behind me, and I asked at least a dozen questions, but they were unable to provide answers to most of them. Madison County leaders say they are constantly in contact with the owner of Green Empire Farms and the company that contracts its workers. More than half have COVID-19.
The health department staff have contacted all who tested positive and have conducted a thorough contact tracing. As I mentioned, additional 29 people were put into quarantine as a result.
Workers are living at these hotels in very close quarters, 4 to a room, according to the county public health director, Eric Feist. He says they're trying to keep the infected workers away from those who are not sick.
Most hotel rooms have 2 beds in them. Is there any case where these workers are having to share a bed?
That I don't know, per se.
That's problematic.
Well, that's part of the reason we think it's spread is because they're in together. But we've tried to separate them within the hotels. There is no place else to put them.
I pressed the chairman of supervisors on the same issue later on.
Was the county aware that these seasonal workers were living 4 to a room in these hotels, and should they be doing that during a pandemic, no matter how much it has reached this area?
I think Eric already answered that question. So next.
Madison County is paying around $3,000 a day to feed the workers. It's unclear whether they'll be reimbursed by the farm or the contract company.
We've done our best to make them feel at home. We've fed them. Want to make sure their living conditions are the way they should be, so they stay put until they can get out of quarantine. That's all they want to do is work.
Madison County leaders also telling me today they made sure to have discussions with the contract company that works to hire the seasonal workers at Green Empire Farms who are unable to work because they're in quarantine or they're sick, that they will still get paid. The spokesperson for the county adds they have been assured they will still get paid.
For more than 2 weeks, the company has refused to answer any questions about an outbreak that has infected more than 170 workers, others in the community, and it is possibly being linked to one death. NBC3's Megan Bragg is holding them accountable tonight.
This is Green Empire Farms, sitting on 232 acres of land on the edge of Oneida, a sprawling network of greenhouses touted as the largest ever single build of greenhouses in North America. In these high-tech gardens, about 300 employees tend to tomatoes and other vegetables every day. More than half of them testing positive for coronavirus and living as many as 4 to a room in local hotels for months. Our You Paid For It investigation reveals taxpayers have a more than $15 million stake in this company's success. Operations here at Green Empire Farms started up in August. 10 months later, the nearly $120 million project still lacks housing for its workers that were part of the original plan. And all this development came with a promise of millions of dollars in tax breaks. We uncovered the project benefits agreement dated November 1st, 2018. In it, the Madison County Industrial Development Agency promises more than $10.3 million in tax breaks over the next 15 years. Your tax dollars also went to a $2.6 million state grant and an Excelsior tax credit worth $2.4 million, $15.3 million that you're paying for. In return, Green Empire Farms has promised 200 new full-time jobs, at least 175 construction jobs, and a combined private sector investment of $120 million. Answering questions about health and safety of worker community was not part of that deal.
Thank you for calling Sunset Customer Service.
Every time we try to get a hold of the company, no one calls back. We've also sent them emails and messages through social media. You can even see that someone read the message, but no one has replied. Green Empire Farms is owned by this group, Mastronardi Produce, a 70-year-old produce company headquartered in Canada, owning 6 other greenhouses in the country. In a statement published on the company's website in March, President and CEO Paul Mastronardi said in part, quote, "Ensuring the health and safety of our employees is our top priority." But since then, silence. Congressman Anthony Brindisi represents the very taxpayers who are directly impacted by the deals made between the county and large companies like Green Empire Farms.
The community deserves answers. Our community has seen these reports. We have friends and family that work there in the community, and we want to make sure that people are being treated accordingly. So if there is any wrongdoing by anyone involved, they need to be held accountable.
Now, we have confirmed OSHA is investigating this outbreak, and Congressman Brindisi has requested a briefing from the State Department of Agriculture and Markets. Meantime, the Madison and Oneida County communities are still waiting for answers on how all this happened. Thank you. It's been nearly 2 months since Green Empire Farms became the site of Central New York's first major coronavirus outbreak. The conditions that allowed the virus to spread forced the Madison County farm to make some major changes. 171 employees of 300 tested positive for COVID-19. The outbreak impacting both Oneida and Madison counties as workers live in both areas. Many were also living forward to a hotel room, even amid this coronavirus pandemic. Now, following the outbreak, Madison County told Green Empire Farms it needs to build on-site housing for its seasonal workers. As the deadline for completion nears, our Mary Keeler takes a look at the progress being made.
Signs of progress from West Elm Street in Oneida, where 2 new blue bunkhouses are nearly done for workers at Green Empire Farms. This after 139 workers tested positive for coronavirus in May, sparking national attention and worry. They were living in local hotels when they got sick. Bunkhouse A and B are waiting on appliances and then final inspections by the City of Oneida Codes Department. Each one can fit 72 workers, and there are 24 workers already living in 2 farmhouses already on site. Is there enough housing for everyone?
Currently, no. There are still people going to be staying in the hotel as a kind of a temporary solution. And we're comfortable with that. You know, if they keep 1 to a bed, I'm comfortable with that. It's my understanding that Green Empire Farms has 2 other bunkhouses proposed.
There are 82 workers at the Super 8 Motel and 52 at the Days Inn waiting to move into these bunkhouses. Public Health Director Eric Feist says the past few months could lead to changes in agricultural plants in New York State.
I think this whole situation, as well as some others that are occurring around the state, you'll probably see a change in how they handle migrant farming in general, because this totally is different than anything we've had to deal with before.
I called Green Empire Farms to ask about the 2 additional bunkhouses proposed. They have not answered my calls. I'm Mary Keeler reporting. The massive coronavirus outbreak in May at Green Empire Farms in Madison County is one that some saw as inevitable.
None of this, however, was a surprise to us. As early as March, when the pandemic began, it was very clear to us and to other advocates that farm workers were at a very high risk of contracting COVID-19 precisely because of the conditions that we saw bear out in the case of Green Empire.
By the time intensive testing of roughly 300 workers at this fruit and vegetable farm was complete, 171 cases of the COVID-19 virus were identified. Our investigations uncovered that most of those workers were bunked as many as 4 to a room at nearby hotels in Madison and Oneida counties. We found them driven to and from work in buses, an apparent lack of social distancing and health protocols at a time when coronavirus was peaking around the country and world. Emma Krejci is an advocate with the Workers' Justice Center of New York.
Advocates kind of saw this coming from a mile away. It was very predictable, unfortunately, that this sort of degree of spread of the virus would happen among farm workers. We just didn't know when or where it was going to happen. And unfortunately, it happened at Green Empire. We were never able to really make direct contact with the workers at Green Empire Farm. Usually our work is, entirely guided by the clients that we serve.
In an ironic twist, it was the same pandemic that halted construction of on-site bunkhouses meant for the workers. 2 bunkhouses holding a combined 144 workers are now done.
Green Empire Farms was kind of a watershed moment for the how New York State really looks at how farm workers and other types of migrant workers are treated. Is that fair to say?
I think it is.
And from that, advocates are finding lessons learned. The New York State Health Department and Agriculture and Markets Department revised guidance for farms in the state on May 27th. Its goal, helping to prevent any more outbreaks among farm workers.
The state has also taken some measures in terms of extending testing, mobile testing units to certain counties with high numbers of migrant farm workers. So there have been some important steps that the state government has taken to help protect farm workers, but there is still a lot more that's needed.
I've also confirmed there's still an active federal investigation into what happened at Green Empire Farms. A spokesperson for OSHA, the agency that oversees worker safety, tells me it can take up to 6 months. That could mean a completed report in December.
What do you want that worker to know if one worker were to hear from you from my story?
They're not alone, that there are advocates and allies on your side that are here to help you understand what your rights are regardless of your immigration status.
I reached out to Governor Cuomo's office to ask them if they could provide me with details on any further harsher regulation they might be planning for farms and to see what they learned from this. I also continue to invite the owner of Green Empire Farms, Mastronardi Produce, to do an interview to talk about what happened and what they've done for their workers since this outbreak. They've yet to take me up on that request.